Good afternoon, and welcome back to our international sessions. Talking about royalties and how to maximize your earnings. We have quite a set of distinguished guests, and I'll just start from here. Please give everyone with a few words just to introduce yourselves. Frederica.
Hello everyone, I'm Frederica from Cobalt Music Publishing Asia. My background is from creative, but now I'm overseeing the operation for Cobalt in Asia. Name a few clients, like we have Max Foundation, Paul McCartney. In Asia, we have SM Entertainment, we have AD Writing. Vincent Sakamoto is also our client, so my main job is to help them to collect royalties around the world.
Nice.
Hello everyone, I'm Max. I'm the Asia Pacific label manager for Secretly Group, which is an American record label group comprised of 3 separate labels: Dead Ocean, Jack Jaguar, and Secretly Canadian. I live in Sydney and I'm the only employee for Secretly in APAC, and I look after all of our artists for the region, including Bon Iver, Phoebe Bridges, Nitty, Crumbin, Slowline, Yes, and plenty more.
Sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Sheshe, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Tinko. Thank you, Kanja. Thank you, the event. My name is Jordi Puy. I'm co-founder and CEO of Unison. We are a new generation collection agency. We do rights management. We collect publishing rights. We are based in Europe, operating globally. And I have like a degree in law, and I specialized in IP. But I never worked as a lawyer. I've been working in the music industry for about 25 years now, but obviously always in the intersection between law and music, which is rights. And that's what we do.
Thank you. Kumabe-san.
Hello, my name is Taro Kumabe. I'm Vice Chairman for IMCJ, Independent Music Coalition Japan, and also Director for the FMBJ, Federation of Music Producers Japan. And also Executive Vice President for the Youth Music, which is the music publishing company and artist management. And I'm working from 1987, so almost 14 years music industry.
And
I'm so sorry to tell you that my English is not good, so it frustrates me. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, and thank you, Brendan. And I do feel humble being in this company. So let's get started. Please feel free to chime in at any point in time, and do not feel obliged to restrict yourself to the questions that I'm asking. Let's start. Let's lay out the foundations. What are the different copyrights? We have publishing, we have record labels, but let's start with some of the publishing part. Yes.
So on the publishing side, once the song is being made and released and in a digital or in physical, there will be mechanical right. Back in the day, we call it mechanical reproduction because we will make CDs and vinyl, but nowadays it's all digital, but we still charge mechanical. Another one we got synchronization, which is have your audio attached to a visual, and we call synchronization right. And then public performance right, where that people will be using your music in the restaurant and then shopping malls, etc. And then we also got print right, which is they print the sheet music and also some lyrics being used on some lyrics platform. Oh, and also of course neighborhood right, but I'll leave it to you to go on.
Yeah, I guess the main ones who would have covered as a publisher, as a label, and kind of mainly concerned with streaming rights and revenues. Because we as a record label and rights holders, we license our music to streaming platforms, and every month we get a payout from each platform based on an overall split to all the songs that we played each month. And then neighboring rights, another one, but maybe you know a bit more about it than I do, to be honest.
Yeah, Jordi will give us a bit more light on that.
Yeah,
on the digital side.
Yeah, we don't touch neighboring rights. We do publishing rights, the ones that Federico was referring to. So if you're thinking on a song, the composition when it's composed is the publishing rights that can be mechanical public performance. Then when it's recorded, it generates the master rights, the recording rights, but also the neighboring rights. Neighboring rights are the interpreters of those rights, of those songs that generate the neighboring rights as such. So it's quite like a complex landscape if you are not familiar or if you are not in this particular part of the business. Sometimes, especially for independent artists, it's a bit daunting to realize how many rights are there, what should I be protecting? Am I a composer or not? Or I'm just an interpreter? So that's what I guess we'll try to enlighten a little bit or share our experience to make it easier, hopefully.
Appreciate it. And Japan is still heavily relying on physical sales. So it would be interesting to understand a little bit more about what are the predominant rights and monetization of royalties in Japan.
今、日本ではですね、まず著作権、いわゆるパブリッシングのところでいうと、どこの国でもほぼ同じようにそのメカニカルであったりとかパフォーマンスであったりとかというものがあります。で、多分日本が大きく違うのは多分シンクロナイゼーションという概念がないんですね。シンクロが日本ではなくて、でシンクロに変わるものとしては、例えばコマーシャル、いわゆるその広告物としての音楽の使用であれば、テレビコマーシャルであれば、その楽曲に許諾料という形でパブリッシングされるとかマスターライツ。双方でそのというのが発生します。これがおそらく、世界的な、いわゆるシステムと同じような考え方。そしてテレビの番組だってそのいわゆる TV ショーの中でのところは、フランケルですね、年間で空港連というのは、テレビ局であったりラジオ局であったり、いろんなその民間の放送業者ソサイティが対抗した間に入ってそれを支払うというような形です。それから映画についてはですね、映画も、これはシンクロというよりはですね、一応許諾料というものは発生するんですけれども、それ以外というと、どちらかというと、その劇場のキャパシティや劇場のその、何かのペースターをするか、そういったその数によってですね、収入が、
So, what Kumabe-san said was regarding publishing related royalties, it's quite similar to other countries. It's not so different. And probably same on the master side as well. But the biggest difference in Japan is that sync isn't really there in the same way that it is in other countries, specifically in Europe and North America. So in general, there's kind of a small admission fee that people that want to use it for sync would have to pay, but it's nowhere near as high as, for example, in the United States. In terms of sync for TV shows, this is done through a blanket license. And for movies, like I said before, there's a small permission fee, but there's only really a public performance royalty that's generated based on how many times the movie is shown, how many theaters. So sync in the way that I guess we would understand it in the West, in a lot of Western markets, doesn't exist.
なので、広告における、コマーシャルの使用でいうと、よっぽどお金のあるクライアントじゃなきゃなかなか不能額は使えます。
So that's why, because of the lack, I guess it's not as lucrative as as we said before. So it's quite hard to use Western music, especially on TV in Japan.
Appreciate it. Well, I know some background information there, but Jordi, what do you think are the biggest challenges of artists and labels collecting at the moment? In particular, the territories that you are covering at the moment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can speak more on the publishing side. That's
Yes,
what we
publishing.
collect. So in the publishing side, there are different challenges that we face to collect, but mostly are probably can divide in challenges at source, meaning the information that we get from the composer or the publisher that allow us to register the song properly and then track the song. So, for example, one challenge that we find a lot is like misspell names, or, for example, the composers that do not input the correct data on the ownership of the work. These type of challenges are something that could be solved with a bit more knowledge from the source that generate problems. But then we have the problems then on the matching side. We manage the publishing rights, which is the song. The song has an identifier, international identifier, called ISWC. It's like the ID of the song, of the composition. But then every time that it's recorded, it generates one code for each recording. The codes for the recordings are the ISRCs. So we have ISWC for publishing, ISRCs for masters. One problem that we face very commonly is that sometimes the ISRCs, the recording, are not correctly linked to the publishing side of things. And that generates that we might be missing royalties because most of the DSPs, especially on the digital side of things, are ISRC driven. So they are driven by the codes of the recordings, not the codes of the compositions. So that's another challenge that we have to face. And what we do to try to solve that is we work ourselves and with technology companies to improve the matching. We also work with our clients, the right holders. Our clients are the composers, the independent publishers, and other CMOs or IMX from around the world. So we work with them to try to ensure that the metadata is the data of the song, it's as correct as possible, as much as possible. And then we work with companies and with our own technology to try to make sure that we link as many ISRCs to the ISWCs so that we don't miss revenues. And that, just to put an example of those challenges in different parts of the value chain.
Thank you, thank you. And Federica, Cobalt made a name for themselves by collecting publishing royalties specifically. So what do Cobalt do in order to tackle challenges like metadata, or what do you think, in your opinion, are the challenges that that rights holders overall are facing, and how is Cobalt helping solve these challenges?
As you might already know, Cobalt is a technology company. Like we start our company with our founder, which is very heavily involved in technology. So I guess what we do is we try to put a lot more resources on the tech, the system behind our company to make sure, or trying to increase the matching, which is one of the very difficult part when the data is not very complete. We will need to use a lot more resources to try to do more accurate matching for our writers. Of course, data is like, I guess there's like 1 million songs coming out each day, so it's a lot of information going through on the internet. So what we do is just keep building, upgrading our technology to help our writer to collect better income. And also we work directly, we have another company called Amra, so we work directly with the CMO so we can have better access to the data faster, quicker to help our clients.
Thank you. Max, we know streaming, especially in various parts of the world, is a significant part of the revenue streams. How do you boost an artist's brand presence? And how do you, from the marketing side, what are the mechanisms that you can apply to boost revenue streams, the marketing perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's all good and well us talking about all the ways you can collect revenue, but no one's going to play your music if you're not performing your music, and if no one's listening to your music, none of that money's going to come to you. So marketing kind of has to start right from the beginning before you release the song. It needs to you need to be thinking about your social strategy, your digital ad strategy, your press and radio strategy well before you kind of release any big projects, especially if you're releasing an album and you're kind of stringing together a bunch of singles. And that's really encompasses kind of anything you can be as big or as small as you want it to be. If you're a small independent artist, you can kind of put on that stuff yourself. You can kind of come up with your own social strategy. You can plug in with kind of other artists like you in your community or overseas. But if you're signed to a label, you have like a proper marketing budget. You can hire external PR. You can hire external radio plugins. You can do that internationally as well. There's kind of no limit really to how much you can spend on marketing. You keep going if you want, but you can do a lot that's free as well. But all of it's really important to make sure people are actually listening to your music, engaging with your music, and you're not just going to get that from getting on a DSP playlist. You have to put in the effort outside of that ecosystem as well.
Thank you. Kumabe-san, what should artists and labels know in order for them to optimize their earnings? What should they know and what should they do from your perspective?
そうですね。今皆さんからもですね、メタデータの重要性みたいなことはお話しされていましたけれども、日本でいうとですね、これひょっとしたら中国の方もそうです、それから韓国もそうなんだろうと思います。特殊な文字ですね、キャラクターがあるので、そういったところで意外とメタデータがですね、きちっとマッチングしないということがすごく増えてきているので、今そのメタデータの、充実というかですね、メタデータをきちっと正確に作っていくということにものすごく日本の業界としては今注力をしています。またそこに対してというようなことですごく業界的にやっぱりやらなきゃいけないことだなと思って、これはそのレコードレベルもそうです。それからマネジメントパブリッシング、すべての業界においては、話をしていきたいと思います。
So to answer your question, Kinko, before, and the other analysts talked a little bit about metadata, and this is something in Japan that's a particularly big challenge, especially recently. It might be the same in other East Asian countries like China or Korea, because they use characters for the artist names, song titles, and especially in Japan, there's no real kind of like to standardize how people should romanize, for example, the metadata, or if they should romanize the metadata. So this is something that we really need to improve, and that all rights holders need to educate themselves on in Japan. And it's an all-industry problem, so it definitely is a big problem for labels, but not only labels, also publishers, artist management companies as well. It's all across the board. So I think to answer your question, like educating and then creating kind of more standardized practices is something that people should know about and try to.
And just following from there, so artists and labels, especially those that are not working with English metadata or Latin alphabet metadata, I should say, they should be careful and they should take into account that whatever metadata they submit, whether to a distributor or to a record label, could affect how their release is performing and how it's in terms of discoverability and everything else, right? So I know because we talked about this in a different place about metadata. It would be interesting to learn from both Jordi and Federica. How do you address different non-ASCII, different alphabet metadata?
I guess one of the challenge is about say for example, easy example is Chinese. We go by our surname go first. Like to me, it will be Wong Federica, but in the Western world, it will be like Federica and Wong. So I have experienced a lot that because of which one should go first and which one should go last, all the metadata are just like couldn't be matched. So I guess it's our job to standardize the format, but I guess the writers should know when they provide the data as clear as possible, like as much as possible. That would definitely help. And also ISRC, I know that ISRC shouldn't be something that the writers should help to provide because we don't release the record. But there is a lot of platform online out there that you can able to help in search, and if not, you can just tell your publisher, hey, can you please help me to just find the ISRs and make sure that it linked to the right word, make sure the registration is aligned with the society or different platform to ensure that you're getting your royalties.
I absolutely understand these struggles, and I think that it is true that obviously if you want results the writer, the publisher needs to try to understand that also there's a massive obligation from the international collection agency system to give an answer to that. The International Confederation of Copyrights and the International Confederation of CMOs has been traditionally very, very Western-centered. And the systems that were set up Westernized, Latin characters. It is, from my perspective, an obligation of the system itself as well to give answers to that. Not only, I understand that you want to maximize, and obviously you say, okay, let's try to figure out how they make it work. But actually, I think that they, meaning my side of the world, should actually give solutions to that. And we are very much advocating for that, for the different alphabets to be included in the registrations, to harmonize that type of metadata in a way that it makes it effective. I've been talking to many people, and we know that a lot of royalties in Europe and US and Latin America, agent-generated royalties are being lost because of these issues, because of like alphabet conflicts that does not allow the system to identify who's the owner of the song, right? So I absolutely join you on your pain on that, and I understand that you want to find your own solutions for that, but I think that also it's responsibility of the system to give solutions.
Yeah, I can speak from experience at Kanjian, is we've definitely seen impact on localizing metadata, for example, in terms of effect of on the royalties being generated. For example, same catalog or similar catalogs where the metadata is not localized, you get a bit of a long tail. You get a few tracks that are a lot more successful, significantly more successful than the rest of the catalog. And when you localize the metadata, that spread is actually a lot more even, and you see a more evenly distributed royalties across the entire catalog versus a select few. But that's on the metadata part. I also believe there's a responsibility on the artist side as well, to the artist and the label side. As of course, if it's a label release, releasing artist, to have this in mind. And off the top of my head, and I'm under no circumstances have anything in particular, but Wang Jiar, if he didn't have his Jackson Wong romanized English name, then he wants to. If someone wants to. Chinese artist wants to really break the rest, or a Japanese artist, for intents and purposes, wants to break in a Western market, they must make themselves visible and searchable and discoverable through a Western perspective. So you cannot stick with the original Chinese characters or in Japanese, and you have to think about that. So, and I also know there's international artists that are trying to go in these markets, China, Japan, Korea. So, Max, please, your 50 cents in that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that's necessarily something we have to think about. Like, we mainly have American artists and British artists, and I think we're very used to just being searchable and being readable and being findable.
But how do you get searchable and findable in Japan? So you
I
think you don't see that as an issue? I'm not saying there is, I'm just probing.
Not really. I think like we do things in countries like Japan, China. We try and do like interviews where the artist name will come up and like it will come up in katakana. So like they'll translate it and then it'll become searchable on Twitter. But honestly, like for fans of the genre of music we release, which is kind of Western indie alternative music, they tend to be able to write out English characters. Like when I look at like Power Records Twitter or whatever, and they're promoting one of our records, they're using the full English name like for the album as well, and that's what people are searching for, and that's how they're promoting it. So like we are very lucky in that sense, and I do understand the struggles the other way going around. You like cannot be a British record store starting something with a Chinese name and like advertising it that way, being translated instantly. But yeah, so I think there's a lot. US has put in a lot more effort going the other way, unfortunately, than the reverse, I think.
Yeah, I don't think this is a problem only to China, Japan, Korea. This is Southeast Asia this time. I mean, there's a whole lot of different artists that go into this. And this is a conversation I like what Jordan mentioned about the organizations. They must figure out a way of solving this problem, because that's not a small part of the world.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and it is an obligation to try to give answers to that. The thing is, like, the way it has worked, in mainland Europe, US is different because US there's always been competition in terms of like collection societies. We've always had BMI, ASCAP, and GMR, all that. But in Europe, up until very recently, a few years ago, there was like a monopolistic situation where you had like only one organization in each country being able to legally collect the publishing rights and then distribute. Those national organizations, they had like obligations of looking after the local repertoire in a certain way, all that. So all their efforts were very centralized on answering the needs of their local repertoire, which I think that's something that made it more difficult even to get this organization to think about. But luckily, the sector was liberalized and allowed companies like us to exist. And by that, we can have different organizations that can provide different solutions to different problems, like problems, which I think that's the beauty of having different organizations doing in a sector rather than just one that is driven for one space.
Kumari-san, how do you track royalties? How do you make sure that you grow that space?
今、ね、ここずっとお話がメタデータもそうですし、我々そのメタデータもそうなんですけど、今、この中でね、アーティストサイドのそのスピリットみたいな話もあります。やっぱりそのソサイティがね、きちんとした部分に対して対応していかなきゃいけないというお話も出てくるんですけど、全くその通りでして、で我々はそういう意味で言うと、そのレジストレーション、楽曲レジストレーション、ジャズ楽曲だったり、そうだったり、そういうコピーライトソサイティに楽曲をレジストレートするときに、今は日本語のタイトルだけでいいんですけれども、我々はですね、もうどんどんこれ正式にローマ字表記するってどうかだということも一緒に登録していこうよということは一生懸命言っています。ただなかなかね、お役所みたいなところでもあったりする、なかなかシステムが完璧に変わらない難しいところがあるんですけども、そういうところを上げていくことが必要だなと思っています。あとはですね、どうしても先ほど来そのメタデータの問題もあるんですけれども、なかなかその海外徴収が、日本語はちょっと遡ってしまうんですけれども、日本国内でですね、2017、8年くらいまではですね、結構その CD、フィジカルのセールスが結構あったので、日本国内では結構ビジネスが成り立っていたところもあったんですけれども、だんだんこうデジタル化が進んでいく中で、だんだんそこがですね、少なくなってきました。そこでこうデジタルの方に少しずつスライドして変わっていくような状況もあったんですけど、そこの中で、パンデミックも起こりというところでですね、一気になかなか日本の業界は大変になりました。で、結果そのパンデミックの間にですね、日本も本部してられないというようなところでですね、やっぱり海外に出ていかなきゃねというようなところで、今一生懸命ですね、そういったそのローマ字英語だったりとかそういったことを訴えていくという。だから結構その作曲やそういったその創作物に対しての AI の問題というのはかなり今ね、世界で。
I'm not really sure. I don't know if it answers the question like directly, but first of all, Kumabe-san wanted to say that he really agrees with what you said about kind of societies, collection authorities having a responsibility to deal with these metadata issues. He thinks that it should kind of be a joint responsibility between artists and other rights holders and these societies, because otherwise, it's just going to be impossible to solve. And one of the biggest challenges in Japan, just to add on to that topic, is that when we write in English, we call it romaji, which is like Roman letters. So there's no real specific way to write in romaji. It differs by the system that you're using, by the rules of that particular organization when you translate it into English, like a song title, for example. So this is a really huge problem, and it makes it really hard to track for paying out folders properly. So I guess I think to answer your question a little bit, the first step in being able to track accordingly is to like standardize the logic and make sure that it's correct across the board in order to do that. And basically, like the Japanese music industry was initially very CD based, and it's still like CDs are a huge part of the industry still. It's been a little slow about being digital, but due to the pandemic, Japan is now catching up to other music markets, and so they're trying to automate a lot of the royalty tracking and distribution for like different AI tools and things. So yeah, I don't know if it answered your question.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the I think it's a very, very long answer. But yes, everyone has something to add to that. How do you track that? It's a good start. Make sure your metadata is correct before you will wait for something on the other end of the value chain. Frederica Technology Company, Cobalt. What do you do with the data once you track the royalties? How do you? Is there any ways you inform decision making for new releases or for songs? Sorry, the publishing side. How can artists use the data from Cobalt to inform their decision making to maximize their earnings?
We have a portal for all of our clients. So with the portal, you can see where is your royalty coming from. You can see which platform, which territory. So with those data, you can target where is your audience base, and then you can just spend your marketing money on the right place to the right audience. Yeah, this is what we do. We do a lot of analysis on our data, and because our company's vision is we need to be more transparent to our clients. So this is the data, it's live data, it updates every day, and so you can just use those data to help your song, your artists grow in the right place.
Yeah, please. I was just gonna.
Yeah.
What did you afterwards?
We use it in a very similar way. I think we're looking more at like your streams, and that comes in, and that helps us address like where in the world we're spending. But it's important to note that like one stream in each country doesn't give the same amount of streaming revenue back. So like a stream in Australia, the US, the UK, traditionally give you a lot more feel back than a stream in Southeast Asia or China, and then kind of a lot of other countries fall somewhere along that spectrum. So even if you're seeing, Indonesia's in number one territory or number two territory, it might not be worth putting in the same marketing budget as it is to a country like the US or the UK, because like what you actually get back is not as much as you're putting in. And yeah, like that is like something we develop software internally to be able to kind of convert the streaming data we get to like how much actual revenue it is. But it's something you should definitely be aware of, like just looking at kind of streams on their own is not a reflection of how much money you're actually making in each territory in isolation.
Yeah, I was going to go right because what Federica said about publishing is super important, right? Like to have the information. So in many instances, there are like CMOs that do not provide very detailed data on the usages in the publishing side, for example. And that's something that we, when we founded Unison, our ethos was efficiency and transparency through technology the right time. So it was in there when we founded the company. So what we do is we provide all the information that we get from the DSPs on usages of our clients' repertoire, and our clients can know not only how many plays they got of the song in Spotify, but how many were in premium, how many were in premium, how many were in family plan, how many. So we give extremely granular data, which for the master side, you are used to that, but on the publishing side, it was not really the standard of the information provided. So we made a point on trying to improve on that so that our clients, independent publishers, the composers, can know as much as possible so that they can make decisions on where is going to be the next tour, or where my money should go, or I put money here. Is it really working or not? So yeah, that's the only thing on that side.
Thank you. No, I'm sure we can talk for a lot more and a lot longer, but we have a few minutes left, so I want to circle around and start with Mabe-san. I'm going to throw in two topics, and you can choose which one. One is AI, one is super plans. So up to you. Super fan though. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? This is like looking ahead. What can we expect? What are we hoping for, and what do you think is going to happen?
AI についてはですね、先ほど特にやっぱり権利の方であって、権利の管理みたいなところに、例えばね、先ほどその文字の問題でも前回言ったようですけども、そういったものが AI によってですね、自動的にいろんなその学習によって変換されて、すごくメタデータがきちんとしてきて、文字が少なくなってくるんだろうなっていうようなことはすごく思いますのと、
So he chooses AI of your two options. And first of all, I think that, or he thinks that, AI, especially in Japan, as the amount of material that the AI can train on, it gets better and better and increases, that this will be really good for the metadata optimization that we brought up earlier in the panel. And this could potentially be one, maybe not a full solution, but somewhat of probably improving the situation. So that's something that he's looking forward to.
で曲作りであったりとかですね、サウンドメイキングとか、歌詞だったり、作品作りのところでの AI 活用というのも、これはもちろん問題があるわけですけれども、見えなければいけないですね。どうしてもやっぱりそういったところが争点と問題点になりやすいんですけれども、そうじゃなくて、どちらかというとその管理であったり、保護であったり、権利の保護であったりですね、そういったところで、この AI が活用されていけば、本当に世界
And AI has kind of been maybe seen with some wariness or fear from the creative point of view. So in terms of making music or talking about the extent that it infringes on copyright or something like that. From a human rights point of view, there's been a lot of debate around AI, and maybe some people feel negatively about it, but certainly, in terms of different from making music, like managing rights, so managing rights, but AI is a huge plus and can turn into a big, like we said before, advantage in terms of managing.
Thank you. Well, since you are experts on fans and super fans, I'll leave the super fans for you guys. I'm going to go into the AI and AI in copyrights. I couldn't agree more on what Mabe-san said about the potential benefits that we are seeing now, but we'll see more about using AI, not generative AI. So not the AI that creates music out of music that has scraped from the internet. But the non-generative AI will help us a lot on field metadata to be able to link better those ISRCs that I was saying, the ISWCs, joining databases, create a new and better database when the parties agree, these type of things. On generative AI, I was following very closely the panel this morning with all the lawyers, and I've been in, I don't know, maybe 6-7 panels in the last few months about AI in Europe and now here, and it's very interesting to see the developments. In Europe, everyone is quoting China, because everyone is quoting the court decisions that are being implemented right now in China, and comparing with what we're doing in Europe, which is something different that actually the panel people mentioned as well. So right now in Europe, there's been a regulation that has been passed that basically says that no one can use the music that exists to train AI without permission. And also, it has set an obligation to label the music as AI created music. So what they say is like, okay, if you label it, the consumer will have the option to choose. Because we'll know it's music. And then anyone that wants to use all the music that exists, that is copyrighted, to create new music for commercial purposes needs to be regulated. So I think that AI is opening incredible opportunities for our industry. It has some challenges, but those challenges, as we saw, I'm old enough to have lived the creation of the internet. I had my first email address when I was a kid. So, at that time, everyone was saying, the music industry is going to disappear. There's going to be no intermediaries anymore because the internet will solve every single problem, and all of you are going to be using it. What has happened? Internet has changed our lives. It has changed the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we live. But it has not made the human input physically. I think that we're going to do something similar with AI. Now everybody's either super excited or super scared, and it's probably something in between. And society will find ways to regulate in the way that you live. It's better suited to this. So that's my 2 cents of my opinion, my own, humble opinion on it.
Well, I think super fans. I do think super fans is a bit of a dirty word now, to be honest. I think it's a bit of a buzzword and it's become associated maybe with major labels who are chasing one of the final kind of revenue streams they can't hit yet. And I think it's become associated with kind of quite exploitative, bringing out all consumers free money basically. But what I think is exciting about super fans and the concept is like kind of what can happen around rights holders. So kind of not involving anyone on this panel. I think what's exciting about the super fan is the relationship an artist can make directly with a super fan, and kind of that doesn't necessarily come from exploiting any of kind of the stuff we've been talking about today and in your recordings, but it could be things like setting up a Substack or setting up a Patreon and kind of getting fans to re-engage with what you're doing to pay for direct access to more, and then you're forming a deeper relationship with that fan, which means they'll be more willing to actually engage with everything else you're doing and everything we've spoken about today on this panel. I think it doesn't need to be associated with always kind of exploiting your rights all the time. I think it can be something that's quite wholesome, and then the rest of that can come from that organic relationship you build with a fan.
Yeah, well put. I think I'm really happy to have you on the panel actually, so we can have that extra additional perspective that is specifically royalties or hate or label or the relationship between an artist and fan. So thanks for that, and thanks for taking this. Federica?
I don't have much on super fan, sorry. So I was just like, they both speak very well about AI. I just want to add on this. Hopefully that we can use it in the right way and to help everyone to maximize their royalties. I believe, because I remember all back in the days when first time when we got MP3, I mean everyone getting very negative about it. Or that was back to, I haven't been in the industry yet, sorry. But I hear that everyone is very negative about it, and now it has been changing, and I just hoping that, we just use it in the right way and make sure you know what is your right, and if you have questions, just please do ask your publisher, your label, and then I guess we'll have a win-win situation.
Thank you. That's a good finale. So thank you everyone, and thank you for being with us. That's all from us.